When my husband discovered that I wouldn't inherit my father's property, he shouted at me, saying, "You can't inherit the property. I have no use for you anymore. I want a divorce immediately." Following that, I sought revenge on both my husband and my sister, who quickly remarried. My name is Juniper, and I'm a 30-year-old office worker. I've been married to Blaze for 3 years. We met through a relative's introduction, and shortly after, we tied the knot. My family was quite wealthy, and since my sister Marigold and I were the only children, our relatives were concerned about finding a suitable match for me. They introduced Blaze to us, believing he would make a good son-in-law. Although Blaze didn't officially become part of the family, he began living with us in my parents' house. My mother passed away a few years ago, leaving my father, my husband, and me living together in our family home. Despite seeming kind and treating my father well, Blaze's behavior raised some concerns. A relative who introduced him warned me about his obsession with money just before our marriage. Despite the warning, I didn't notice any signs of Blaze's money obsession initially. However, he did show some curiosity about my father's wealth, casually asking about our property when they would have a drink together. Since my father was open about our assets, I didn't pay much attention to it. Another thing that caught Blaze's interest was my sister. She's 6 years younger than me, vibrant and socially active, unlike my reserved personality. Blaze was surprised by how different she was from me. His fascination with her, given her striking appearance compared to my plain looks, made me uneasy. Our relatives had introduced Blaze to me because they were concerned I wouldn't find a match due to my modest appearance and personality. They worried about the continuity of our family name. Back then, I didn't think much of it, assuming my beautiful sister would eventually marry. However, I later understood why our relatives were concerned. My father had spoiled my sister, allowing her to pursue higher education without clear goals. Despite my mother's efforts to encourage her to find a job, my father insisted on supporting her financially. After completing vocational school, my sister briefly worked at my father's friend's company but quit after 6 months, claiming she couldn't utilize her talents there. This excuse shocked me, revealing her lack of motivation to work. My sister, who hadn't even held a job for 6 months, acted as though she understood everything about her work, leaving my mother and me astonished. Yet, my father seemed to believe her and swiftly found her another job. Shortly after starting her new job, my mother fell ill and was hospitalized. During her hospitalization, my sister visited her daily, taking time off work. Eventually, she quit this job too, claiming she would take care of our sick mother. However, her idea of caregiving involved merely chatting with our mother or staring at her phone in the waiting room. Meanwhile, I had to handle tasks like getting our mother's laundry and replacing it with clean clothes during her hospital stay, while my sister was of no help at all. Despite my mother possibly finding solace in her company, her condition deteriorated to the point where she could no longer converse. 2 weeks after her condition worsened, our mother passed away. Following our mother's death, my sister started working part-time and moved out to live alone. However, her part-time income wasn't enough to cover her expenses, so my father covered her rent and utility bills. It appeared she spent her earnings on leisure activities. When her income fell short, she turned to our father for an allowance. While our mother was alive, she had been stringent with my sister, so our father hadn't given her any allowance. But now, he freely handed her money whenever she asked. Initially, I didn't see an issue if both my father and sister were content with this arrangement. Even after I got married and moved in with my husband, my father continued providing my sister with an allowance. Unbeknownst to me, my sister also asked my husband for money, which he willingly gave, fearing I'd be jealous if I found out. My sister chose to work part-time sporadically, relying on funds from our father and my husband. However, her carefree lifestyle was disrupted when our father fell ill and was hospitalized. I juggled caring for him during my work breaks, But my sister never showed up at the hospital. Instead, she began demanding money from me over the phone. She angrily asserted, "I've been getting money from Dad every month, so I want you to keep giving it to me. After all, the rent and utilities are all being withdrawn from Dad's account." This revelation shocked me, and though I wanted to hang up on her, I couldn't ignore her plea for help. I inquired about the amount she had been receiving from our father, urging her to find a job to support herself. My sister responded grumpily, "You're so annoying. I've been getting $2,000 a month, and that's not including rent and utilities, by the way." Her boastful attitude about the amount she received shocked me. I worried that if our father continued giving her so much money, she'd lose any motivation to work. Initially, I didn't consider it much of a problem to provide my sister with money, believing our father would recover quickly. However, his sudden worsening condition left me deeply shocked. During this challenging time, I sought my husband's support, but he rarely visited the hospital, citing work as his excuse. When he did visit, he'd ask inappropriate questions like, "Your father's inheritance must be huge, right? Since you and your sister are the only heirs, are you going to split it in half?" I was speechless in response to his focus on the inheritance, realizing what our relatives had meant about his obsession with money and feeling disgusted. When my sister received a call, I explained our father's critical condition, but she only seemed concerned about her allowance, saying, "Make sure you pay me my monthly allowance. I can't survive without that money." Her selfish response angered me, especially considering the faint male voice I overheard, leaving me with a bad feeling. About a month later, our father passed away, and neither my sister nor my husband were present during his final moments. Reflecting on my mother's funeral, I understood the weight of funeral preparations. Yet, neither my sister nor my husband offered any help, and my sister didn't even attend. Although my husband did show up at the funeral, he disappeared afterward, claiming he had work. A relative who introduced us noticed his absence and questioned me about it, expressing concern over the chief mourner's absence. Once the funeral concluded, my husband grinned and asked about the inheritance, showing his true colors as our relatives had warned. Disappointed by his lack of empathy, I gave him an evasive answer, stating that my sister would inherit everything. His reaction was immediate, yelling, "What? You can't inherit any property? I don't need you anymore. Let's divorce right now." Feeling a mix of anger and disbelief at his callousness, I struggled to process my emotions amidst the whirlwind of the funeral's aftermath. My husband's sole focus on inheritance left me questioning our marriage and feeling profoundly disappointed in him. Feeling equally frustrated, I shot back, "Let's do it. You only married me for your father's inheritance in the first place. I'll divorce you." With determination, I pushed the prepared divorce papers in front of my husband. Seemingly taken aback, my husband signed the papers without much resistance. After his swift departure, I wasted no time and headed straight to City Hall to submit the divorce papers. Finally free from my terrible marriage, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. However, my ex-husband wasted no time in moving on. The very next day, he submitted his marriage registration with my sister, eager to pursue what he believed to be a lucrative inheritance. A few days later, he called me, still under the mistaken belief that my sister would inherit everything. I had been waiting for this moment. Refusing to reach out to him first, I responded in a businesslike manner, agreeing to meet at my place to discuss the inheritance procedure. Blaze, my ex-husband, was thrilled at the prospect of receiving a substantial inheritance and eagerly hung up the phone. But little did he know, I had a surprise in store for him. Over the weekend, both my ex-husband and my sister, Marigold, came to our parents' house. They were surprised to find that I had already consulted a lawyer. Despite their initial confusion, Blaze quickly convinced himself that legal counsel was necessary for handling a large inheritance. However, their optimism was short-lived as the lawyer presented evidence of Blaze's infidelity. Photographs clearly showed Blaze leaving Marigold's house on multiple occasions, dated before our divorce. Suddenly, talk of inheritance shifted to discussions of compensation, leaving both Marigold and Blaze speechless. Blaze attempted to downplay the situation, claiming that compared to the inheritance, the compensation was insignificant. He readily signed the documents acknowledging the claim, only to be met with a firm reminder from me that he would indeed pay for his actions. As Blaze's anger simmered, Marigold was shocked to hear that her supposed inheritance was zero. Her outburst prompted Blaze to demand his share, insisting that there was no way the inheritance was non-existent. However, the lawyer calmly stepped in to explain the situation to the disgruntled pair, setting the stage for a tense negotiation. It became evident that Marigold, despite being my late mother's daughter from a previous marriage, couldn't legally inherit my father's estate. This was because she hadn't been legally adopted by my father, and thus, there was no formal parent-child relationship recognized by law. I reminded Marigold of this fact, explaining that although she might not remember due to her young age at the time, I vividly recalled our parents' remarriage when I was 7 years old. I had welcomed her as my sister with open arms, never anticipating that she would later become involved with my husband. Our parents had each brought a child into the marriage, with my mother treating Marigold as her own and my father showing her special care. However, they chose not to legally adopt Marigold, perhaps to avoid complications regarding inheritance. Despite suspicions from relatives about my mother's motives for marrying my wealthy father, they refrained from formalizing the adoption, knowing that I was the sole legal heir to my father's estate. It became clear that my father had continued to financially support Marigold into adulthood because he couldn't pass on his inheritance to her. Although legally, I wasn't related to my mother due to the lack of adoption, it had never affected our familial bond in daily life. However, my sister learned the truth about our parents' remarriage for the first time that day, which added another layer of complexity to the situation. As my ex-husband realized the gravity of the situation, his face turned from red to pale. He signed the documents acknowledging his liability for damages when he couldn't claim the inheritance he had anticipated from my sister. With a mixture of amusement and satisfaction, I revealed that my earlier claim about my sister inheriting billions was a fabrication meant to retaliate against his infidelity. Furthermore, I clarified that our father's estate was nowhere near the claimed amount, and my sister's inheritance was non-existent. My sister, who had been silent until then, panicked about her financial situation, asking if I would support her. However, I firmly reminded her that she now had a dependable husband and should rely on him instead. Despite her hopeful glance toward my ex-husband, he declined, citing his own financial struggles and the need to pay damages. Following the discussion, my ex-husband and sister left, their heads hung low. Soon after, they divorced, with my ex-husband realizing that his interest in my sister had waned without the promised inheritance. He agreed to pay damages and monthly installments from his salary, as advised by the lawyer, ensuring I wouldn't suffer any losses. My sister, now without our father's support, struggled to make ends meet with part-time work and eventually filed for bankruptcy. She disappeared, leaving behind debts and unanswered questions. Reflecting on my past experiences, I resolved to find a suitable partner for myself, determined to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. After the tumultuous events with my ex-husband and sister, life took on a quieter rhythm. I found solace in the familiar surroundings of my childhood home, now occupied solely by me. Though the house echoed with memories of happier times, it also held the promise of a fresh start. As I navigated through the aftermath of my divorce and my sister's financial troubles, I began to rediscover myself. I delved into my work with renewed focus, finding fulfillment in my career and the independence it afforded me. Yet, amidst the daily grind, there lingered a longing for companionship and the warmth of a loving partnership. Despite my resolve to find a suitable marriage partner on my own terms, the prospect of dating again felt daunting. The scars of past betrayals still stung, casting a shadow of doubt over new beginnings. However, I refused to let fear dictate my future. With cautious optimism, I ventured into the world of modern dating, armed with lessons learned and a newfound sense of self-assurance. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, I found myself gradually opening up to the possibility of love once more. Encounters with potential suitors brought a mix of excitement and apprehension, each interaction offering valuable insights into what I truly sought in a partner. Through laughter and shared experiences, I discovered the importance of authenticity and mutual respect in any relationship. Alongside my personal journey, life continued to unfold with its own set of challenges and triumphs. The passing of seasons marked the passage of time, while cherished memories mingled with newfound joys. Through it all, I remained steadfast in my pursuit of happiness, embracing both the highs and lows as integral parts of life's tapestry. As I reflect on the winding path that led me to where I am today, I am reminded of the resilience of the human spirit and the boundless capacity for growth and renewal. Though the road ahead may be uncertain, I face it with courage and conviction, knowing that with each step forward, I draw closer to finding true fulfillment and contentment in life's journey. In the tranquil solitude of my childhood home, I found sanctuary amidst the chaos that had unfolded in recent times. The familiar sights and sounds of the house provided a comforting embrace, offering a refuge from the storms that had swept through my life. As I settled into the rhythms of my new reality, I immersed myself in activities that brought me solace and joy. I spent leisurely afternoons tending to the garden, the earthy scent of soil mingling with the sweet fragrance of blossoms. Each flower that bloomed seemed to whisper tales of resilience and renewal, a silent reminder of the beauty that could emerge from even the darkest of times. In the quiet moments between dusk and dawn, I found solace in the pages of books, their words weaving intricate tapestries of imagination and wonder. Lost in worlds both familiar and fantastical, I embarked on journeys of self-discovery, each chapter revealing new depths of insight and understanding. Yet, amid the tranquility of my solitude, there lingered a yearning for connection, a longing for companionship that tugged at the strings of my heart. Though the wounds of past betrayals still lingered, I refused to let fear hold sway over my destiny. With each passing day, I summoned the courage to venture beyond the confines of my comfort zone, embracing the possibility of love once more. As I dipped my toes into the uncertain waters of modern romance, I discovered the transformative power of vulnerability, the raw beauty of baring one's soul to another. With each new encounter, I forged connections that transcended the superficial, delving into the depths of shared experiences and shared dreams. Through laughter and tears, I learned to cherish the moments of connection that bound us together, weaving a tapestry of shared memories and mutual understanding. Though the road ahead may be fraught with challenges and uncertainties, I walk it with head held high, knowing that with each step forward, I draw closer to the promise of a brighter tomorrow. In the quiet corners of my heart, hope blossomed like a flower in the spring, casting its radiant glow upon the path that lay ahead. Armed with courage and resilience, I embrace the journey that unfolds before me, confident in the knowledge that love awaits at the end of the road. And as the sun sets on one chapter of my life, I eagerly anticipate the dawn of a new beginning, a chapter filled with boundless possibilities and infinite promise.